Good morning, my friends from Chungking Mansions here in TST, the centre of Hong Kong. It's 4 a.m. I'm just leaving here. I was meant to be staying the night. It was actually as part of a vlog. Unfortunately, I can't sleep, and it's not because it's noisy, and it's not because I wasn't staying in a nice place. I just can't sleep. I think it's just because I'm in a new bed, you know what I mean? I'm gonna buy a drink. Also, a few days ago, my Hi, sir. Do apologise, I'm a little distracted. How much, sir? Five. A few days ago, my alarm just randomly wouldn't go off, and it meant that I made it to work just in the nick of time. And I really mean, if I'd been seconds later, there would have been a disciplinary, because you can't be late when you're a teacher. You know, little kids obviously need people in the classroom with them. So it was, I don't know how to explain it, because obviously I set my alarm as per usual. Thank you, sir, thank you. Yes, my friend, thank you very much. It just didn't go off. Anyway, I think I've kind of got the fear that that's going to happen again. I really don't want to miss work again. So, I'm leaving. I'm going to walk to work. It's 4 a.m. I don't have Google Maps, but I've looked up on my laptop prior to leaving how long it would take if I just kind of walk along the river all the way to TKO, which is where I work one of my days here in Hong Kong. And Google Maps said 4 hours. So if it's accurate, I'll get there at 8 a.m. and work doesn't start till 9. So it should be easy peasy. Why am I doing this? Well, it's always been on my bucket list to walk from home to work one day. Because it's a bit of an adventure. It's a long, proper walk. And I love exploring places through walking. I'm not that far away from home. There's a river that separates us. So if I had been walking from home, I'd have to take the ferry. That would take you're on it for 5 minutes, but with the queuing and the waiting for the precise time, you could maybe factor in 15 minutes for that. And then I'm about 15 minutes walk from the ferry. So I'm basically doing this experience right now. I'm only half an hour shy of the full experience. I'm happy with that. This isn't going to be a vlog. It's 4 hours. I'm definitely not going to feel a pressure to talk the whole time. I expect I won't talk for much of it. This is a different video. This is just us enjoying what the city looks at night. And maybe there'll be a few surprises along the way. Maybe there won't. That's kind of the exciting thing about doing random things. You just don't know what will happen until you do it. Okay. So I stayed in Chungking Mansions. And just here is the 5-star Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong. Isn't that moon beautiful? I don't know how well you're going to see that. But yeah, once I'm up a pay grade or two in YouTube AdSense, I made an unprecedented 50 quid in my last payout, so I'm practically there. Now, do you see how it would be ridiculous to wait, basically? The streets are so empty. But in Hong Kong, they're really, really strict about people walking when the lights are red. So we wait. There we go. Okay, and now we're crossing to the river. I don't know how it's going to work exactly, but I'm hoping I can basically just follow the river until I see something that suggests me I'm near work. But I don't need, I can zone out for, my God, they're so big. That's crazy. Yeah, I can zone out for a long time though. It's gonna be so far away. So this place is cute. It's for kids, obviously, but you can go down little chutes and stuff. So I lived in Greenland for 4 months, a summer ago, a year ago, and oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. When I lived in Greenland, Greenland belongs to the Kingdom of Denmark. Obviously, the politics of that situation are quite complicated, but the matter of fact is that Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark. So obviously Denmark is where Lego comes from. And to get to Greenland, there's a few places you can fly from, but the most obvious is Copenhagen. And that's where work flew us from. So I knew when I was in Greenland that because work was flying, oh my goodness, I do apologise, but can we just take a second? This is so special to me. I've lived in cities before. I lived in Glasgow. That was my first experience of living in a city. This is I'm actually going to take my jumper off. I'll probably have to put it on again at some point, but for now I'm a little bit too warm. You know, I didn't rate Glasgow that much. In Scotland, that truly is a blasphemous thing to say. Scots absolutely love Glasgow. And you should love the cities of your country. I wish I loved Glasgow, but I could never really get on board with it. I just felt everything got very samey very quickly. And it's got such a heavy drinking culture, which, you know, at the time I was on board with. But it did kind of feel like it was that or nothing, which I'm sure isn't true. I'm sure if I moved back to Glasgow as a slightly older, well, not slightly, a significantly older person who knows myself better and who knows how to seek out what I want better, I'd really enjoy Glasgow. But I can't say I thought that much of it. Anyway, then I lived in London. And London astonished me. Now, conversely, the Scots absolutely love Glasgow. But you can't tell the average Scot that you live in London without them having something major to say about it. You know, oh, London's so expensive. There's loads of foreigners in London. You know, true. London's very crowded. True. You know, but as in, I think it's just such a different world, London, from Scotland, that it's very difficult for a Scot who's maybe only visited for the weekend, and when they went to Madame Tussauds and then, you know, a West End show, and they were kind of in a bit of a state of stress the whole time because everything was so different and they were doing things that were very expensive and in very congested areas. I think, you know, a lot of people have a conception that, you know, you pay a lot in London and don't get that much back. I definitely don't feel that way. London gave me so much. And a big thing London gave me was beautiful views. Every borough of London contrasts so much with all the other boroughs. The architecture in each borough is so unique. And so if you go on like a 2-hour walk in London, what you're experiencing is just, I can't even, you're like going on 20 mini walks. It's so beautiful. But anyway, my point is that there were loads of moments of awe in London when it came to good-looking views. But the blend of nature and human innovation, I've never seen it so perfectly as I do when I'm on this side of Hong Kong, looking at my island and looking at Victoria Peak and all of these fantastic buildings. Hi, sir. Anyway, where I've also lived is in Greenland. And to continue the Lego story, when I was in Greenland, I knew, okay, I'll be flying home via Denmark, and I would like to experience Denmark. So what I did, hi, good morning, sir, bro. What I did was, a few things. If you have an interest for whatever reason in fine dining, you don't associate Danish food with fine dining, the cuisine, because I think essentially you don't associate Danish cuisine with basically anything. It's not really on the world map, but Denmark's such a rich country. And I do believe that, the biggest factor in whether you kind of produce a lot of fine dining establishments, whether you're a country that has a lot of Michelin stars, it's actually just to do with the wealth of your country, essentially. Because these are the places that can make these kind of restaurants, right? So Copenhagen's absolutely swimming in money. Consequently, there's a lot of really, really cool fine dining restaurants there. And in general, Copenhagen's just so trendy. There's a lot of trendy restaurants there. Anyway, because I've worked in fine dining, I always feel like a snob saying this because it is a snobby thing to say, but because I've worked in fine dining, I like to experience it myself. And I'm absolutely by no means a connoisseur, and I absolutely by no means think that fine dining is, because it's of a certain standard, that means that it's automatically the best. You actually have to be in a very particular mood to enjoy an experience like that. And a lot of the times it is completely unnecessary, because a lot of places offer really tasty, healthy and innovative food for reasonable prices. And at the end of the day, those places are by far the most important, because food is a human necessity and we need it to be accessible. And to the average person, your food should still feel exciting and innovative and healthy, regardless of how much money you have. So street food will always be king. The national dish of a country will always be king. But what I like about fine dining is just humans just have quite a wonderful ability to turn everything into a storytelling experience, I suppose in some ways I'm doing this right now, right? I'm going on a walk, but it's also going to prove to be a bit of a story. There's something so natural about that. It's a human need, it's a human interest. And with fine dining, that's kind of what they try to do with food, right? They turn it into a performance and a story. And of course, some of those theatrics don't always pay off, or to some will just end up looking really unnecessary, elitist. But I think when it's done right, and when you know what you're signing up for, and so you're prepared for that, it can be quite a wonderful treat. To be reintroduced to food, something that you just assume you know all about, and that in many ways we don't even have a relationship with, because it's such a big part of our life. A lot of the times when we're eating it, we're not even tasting it as we eat it. We're just consuming fuel. It's really nice to have little moments where you're completely dedicated to the experience of truly tasting your food. And I think fine dining has the potential to do that well. So anyway, I was working in Greenland at a 2 Michelin restaurant, as it happens, and I knew I was returning to Copenhagen, and I wanted to see different sides of Denmark, so I booked a ticket to Legoland, which isn't in Copenhagen, it's in a place called Billund. And I was absolutely stoked that I was going to Legoland. I'm a qualified Aspie, and I think we've always been quite attracted to Lego. But also just, are these? You're fishing?
Yeah.
Already? Wow, how's it? Why do you fish at night? Why now? Oh wow, this is what they've caught. But why? Why now? Oh, is that the tail? Whoa. Why do you fish so early?
Oh, we have been fishing all night.
Oh my goodness, but why? Why all night?
It's cooler.
Yes, significantly.
And it's easier to catch.
Oh my goodness, they're not too happy about it though, are they?
Oh no, there's 3 of them in there.
Good luck, sir. Maybe I'll join you one night. Have a good one, my friend. Do you think people in central London fish in the Thames? Do you think they'd dare? Right, this is it. I'm gonna finish this fucking Lego story. It's so boring as well. So anyway, I told all my colleagues I've bought a ticket to Legoland. It cost me, I don't know, maybe, let's say 60 quid. So not cheap. And so all of my colleagues are also from the Kingdom of Denmark. And that's because they were either Danish or most of them were from the Faroe Islands, which is like, you know, the other underdog of the Kingdom of Denmark. The Kingdom of Denmark is Denmark, the Faroe Islands and Greenland. So most of them are from the Faroes actually, because Cox, the restaurant I was working for, is from the Faroe Islands. That's where they've spent the majority of their time. But what happened, how they ended up in rural Greenland, was that actually some of the politics I've now forgotten. It was important I knew all of it at the time because when customers asked I had to give off a spiel, but the Faroe Islands has an unfortunate problem where it's very hard to secure land. And I can't for the life of me remember why, because it's not that they don't have an abundance of land, but I don't know. It's hard to, I should just shut up, I can't remember. Anyway, so Cox in the Faroe Islands, going strong. The Faroes were never ever known for fine dining, and I suppose you could say they're still not. But the head chef, Paul, from a very early age, he's an incredible man. He grew up in a pizza takeaway. His dad ran a pizzeria. And so from a very young age, he grew up eating a lot of pizza and really appreciating the ambience of what this pizzeria was bringing to like this rural area of the Faroe Islands. How even in the Faroe Islands, there could be like a foreign cuisine being sold that appealed to the masses and brought everyone together. And obviously, a pizzeria is only on quite a small scale, you know, showcasing different cuisines, right? Because pizza has become so global. But it still was. And he really grew up in this really happy environment where everyone knew each other, and this all accumulated in the pizzeria. And he always had that love for the community that hospitality could create and that food could create. But he saw that everything sold in the Faroe Islands from the perspective of food was so basic. Because he lived in a, well, didn't live, but he grew up in a pizzeria. And that was considered crazy that there was a pizzeria in the Faroes. So he always knew that as a point of reference, this is what the Faroese kind of think is pushing the boundaries. And so I guess his natural personality mixed with his experiences meant that he always wanted to see how much further he could take it. And so Paul, at the age of 18, moved to Copenhagen and he worked for Noma. And Noma, in fine dining / the Michelin world, is kind of basically as good as you can get. So it's a 3 Michelin star restaurant, right? But there's 3 Michelin star restaurants and there's 3 Michelin star restaurants. And Noma is a 3 Michelin star restaurant. It has a status beyond that. It really is, consistently in the top 10, top 5 restaurants in the world. I mean, I can't vouch for it personally. I've never been. But yeah, people absolutely. It stood the test of time as well. It's had a 3 Michelin star forever. And it's in Copenhagen. They do little seasons other places. Right, so I can't just walk down here. So I think I have to walk up here. I'm really hoping it takes me back to the water quickly. So he worked at Noma, and if you're from Denmark and you're a chef that's worth their salt, at least kind of in the traditional respect, as in if you're wanting to climb the ladder till you reach, owning your own restaurant that gets its own stars, etc., then you've worked at one of 3 restaurants. This is what I was told by a Danish chef. You've worked at Noma, you've worked at Geranium, or you've worked at The Alchemist. Those are like the top 3 where it's like, get that on your CV, do a few years at one of these places, and the world's your oyster. So Paul worked at Noma as basically a child, you know what I mean, 18. That's where he started his career. And then he returned to the Faroes and he opened Cox, which is innovative Faroese cuisine. And then they got their first star, and then they got their second star. And even then, they were known as the most remote Michelin restaurant in the world. But then they were in a situation where they couldn't renew their lease. It was a major problem. And what they decided to do was crazy. They decided, okay, we're not going to shut down for 3 years. For 3 years, what we're going to do instead, I'm really hoping this, do I maybe can't? For 3 years, what we're going to do instead is we're going to do summer seasons in Greenland. And not just Greenland, doing it in Nuuk would be one thing. They did it in a village called Eliminac. Eliminac, fuck me, this walk's gonna take forever. Eliminac has a population of 49 people. 49 people live in that village. And they chose it. It's an hour's boat ride from the third largest city in Greenland, which is called Ilulissat. For reference, the population of Ilulissat is 3,500. And the town I grew up in is called Newton Stewart in Scotland. And it has a population of 3,500. So the idea that Newton Stewart could be like the third most populous place in Scotland is like coconuts. But that's Greenland for you. It truly is a rural place. The capital, Nuuk, it's got a population of 30,000, which is the population of Dumfries, which is where I always say I'm from on camera because, you know, a few people have heard of Dumfries. But yeah, I mean, the idea that Dumfries could be a capital is really crazy as well. Right, now I want to be down there. I'm hoping there's some stairs. Okay, so here's what happens. Paul chooses to take his already extremely remote concept of a restaurant to what is almost literally the most remote place in the world. You know, of course not quite, but almost. Fucking mental. So Greenland is so obscenely remote and, you know, so difficult to get to. And if it's difficult for a person to get to, it's difficult for supplies to get to. So his first summer, like, they arrived at this shack that they were going to turn into a restaurant about... No entry to visitors. About 10 days before the restaurant was meant to open for its first season, they had to turn it from what was a dusty warehouse, not just into like a beautiful looking restaurant, but also a functioning kitchen. And all of those things had to be shipped on cargo ships. It was crazy. I wasn't there for it, but I've seen it because a film was made about it. A documentary called The Most Remote Restaurant in the World. And that's how I heard about Cox, because I watched the documentary and I thought, my fucking God, how crazy that could be a summer of your life. So the taps just randomly kept going on and wouldn't go off. They constantly existed as chefs in a kitchen where there was water up to their ankles and they didn't know how to stop it. The electricity kept going off. Plenty of the supplies that they needed didn't arrive or arrived broken. It was absolute chaos. And yet they maintained their 2 Michelin star. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. So that's fairly impressive, I'd say. I don't know anything about the second season, but the third season, their final season in Greenland, that's when I arrived. That's when I arrived. And what went wrong? Well, whenever there was a storm, like, the power just goes off. Chefs actually need power to cook. Fun, obscure insight. Oh, you know what? It's quite hard to talk when you're absolutely exhausted. And this is a dead end. What? Okay, cool. Well, we're definitely walking. I don't know if we're walking to TKO, but we're walking. It's always a treat when you live. That means nothing to me. Oh, okay. I thought there was a chance it was telling me off. Right. We're outside again. I'm hoping somewhere to take us to the water. When you need electricity to cook, and guests arrive at Cox with an expectation that everything's going to be perfect, and there's so much pressure that it should be, because none of these guests are local. They're people who, at the very least, are incorporating Cox into an already very expensive holiday. But more often than not, the holiday was designed around coming to Cox. So you're now, oh, there's a security guard. I'm going to ask him how to get to the water. No, I'm not. He's gone inside. So sometimes, like, the chefs just had to kind of get little gas stoves going on, and loads of other crazy innovative things, like put a barbecue on outside and stuff, and just drastically kind of change their cooking style, because they had no choice. Like, the power had just gone off. Also, I think not everyone in the village kind of understood the pressure that Cox was under, and the reputation of Cox, because sometimes they would just turn the power off themselves for, like, routine checks and stuff. Hello, sir. I do apologise. I'm trying to walk to TKO. How do I get to the water? Yeah, I know, it's a big walk, right? No internet. Doing it freestyle. I want to go down to the water so I can just walk along the water. Possible? I'm so sorry. You want to walk with me?
I should just over the road.
Over this road? Okay. Through? Straight, and then elevator down? The elevator? Okay, thank you. Other side. Thank you, sir. What the? Okay. I was literally just about to ask, why don't the homeless sleep here? But I've just seen a security guard. Which makes sense. So over the road. Let's hope this is what he's on about. This is nice, isn't it? I fucking swear this is the MTR. Oh boy. Okay. Wait. Please, no. This is the hotel. He sent me back. Okay, cool. Just suck it up. Someone's been naughty. At least in the eyes of the police. Yeah, so sometimes the locals, well, as in, I say the locals, there would have been 2 or 3 men that had this power, but they would just turn off the power for the village. Because, I mean, they were doing their jobs, which was that, you know, sometimes it had to be shut down so that it could be turned back on again. Obviously, Greenland's weather is so severe that there's maybe a lot of situations you have to do that in. But it didn't occur to them that they maybe shouldn't do it, you know, peak service time, and that if they were going to do it, they should at least tell the restaurant before they did it. Definitely, like, could not have been less malicious, but it happened a few times, and it was such an amateur move. Do you know what I mean? It's all funny now, but it's crazy. It's crazy how it's not funny at all when it's happening. You know, chefs do not have a sense of humor when it's peak service time and things go absolutely tits up. They make amazing jokes about it afterwards, but in the time that it's happening, they're pretty scary, to be honest. And that's not like the chefs at Cox. That's basically all chefs I've worked with. It's funny how it's a profession that, you know, really kind of attracts a very specific type of person. So that happened a lot in my 3rd season. A big thing that happened was that our head sommelier, who actually used to work at Noma back in the day, so I arrived, right, at Copenhagen Airport, where we're all flying together, and this is the first time I'm meeting everyone. I'm just going to go through here and hope for the best. And I know, like, I'm flying to rural Greenland, and I belong to a front of house team where it's like 15 people or less, right? It really was like a tight community. Imagine my surprise when the sommelier was Scottish, and not only Scottish, but from my part of Scotland. I'd never met him, I didn't know him. He was a few years older than me. But basically, he had kind of signed up for the experience for the same reason I had, in that he'd seen the film. He himself had also worked in a 3 Michelin star restaurant, but as in, his experience was so different. It was okay, fuck off. I'm now on a road. Where's a path to the water? No, because I want to go that way. Down there? Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I swear I've just been up these steps. Anyway, this is taking me back to TST. I can see on the time that I've been walking for 39 minutes. I feel like it's been at least 2 hours. I'm done. Anyway. So this guy, I've worked at a 3 Michelin star restaurant, but my experience was a summer job where I was a call-me waiter. And for the record, that still means a significant amount of work, but it doesn't mean a significant amount of expertise. And it doesn't mean, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything, actually. Well, no, it does. It does, because it got me the job at Cox. It opens doors for sure. But for anyone who also works in that industry, they're not going to look at my experience and think it's anything impressive at all. But this sommelier, and you'll figure out soon why I'm not being more specific with the details about his name, he had worked for years at Noma, to the extent where they'd taken him to one of their seasons in Cancun, and I think as well in Japan. Good morning. And he really knew his shit. He started off as a waiter at Noma and worked his way up to a sommelier position. So he knew Copenhagen very well, obviously, but also he just knew the industry very well, and he knew his area of expertise was wine. Very cool, at least on initial impression. So, what was stressful about him? Well, let me tell you. About 3 weeks into work, it was noted that alcohol was missing. Now, very admirably, I had quit drinking just prior to traveling. So when I say I'd quit drinking just prior, I really mean it. I was shit-faced on the plane to Copenhagen. So I wanted to become sober for many years. And I tried and had reasonable successes. My biggest success prior to the one I'm currently in was when I lasted 112 days. And it's funny how that's quite a small achievement compared to someone who's now maybe on like 14 months. It's a pretty small achievement, but I'm still really proud of that now, even though, obviously it ended with me going back to drinking. But just prior to me going traveling, 62 days prior to be precise, I had decided again, okay, enough's enough, this is it. I am quitting drinking for good. And the reason for that was that, well, it's not a nice story, but my ex-boyfriend, who at the time I loved very much, we had got into a big fight, and I just said some things that you can't take back. And do you know what really, really fucking sucks? Is that the things I remember repulse me, but I remember very little. So way worse things would have been said. So I said to him as a commitment to him, I said, look, this is it. I can't drink if I'm someone like that when I'm drunk. I don't have that right. So I'll stop. And I did. For 62 days. And on the 62nd day, it was my going away party in Edinburgh with my friends before I flew to Denmark. My flight was at 6 a.m. in the morning. I arrived, I was depressed because just before that, my boyfriend had told me he wasn't coming on the trip. And you know what? There's reasons that makes him an asshole, and there's reasons that's completely fair enough. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, so I was very unhappy that he hadn't turned up, but I'd kept my commitment to sobriety. But then, I don't know, just seeing all my friends, we were at an Indian. There was so much alcohol on the table for my friends, and the adrenaline, the nerves of what was to come, the love of seeing my friends, and also, the devastation about my ex-boyfriend not coming on the trip. I was just so emotional in general. I got shit-faced. I just want to go down there. I got absolutely plastered. I'm very lucky that I even got to fly to Copenhagen. But anyway, so then it reset when I landed in Copenhagen. My very first day abroad, my very first day of my new life was me being incredibly hungover and me being very, very guilty about the fact I drank because, you know, the reason I'd quit before was so strong. It no longer was about, oh, I'm quitting for my health, I'm quitting so that I can achieve my goals. It's imperative that I quit because the person who I am when I'm drunk is absolutely unacceptable, and I can't claim to be a good person and also choose to drink. So nothing should be a stronger motivation, and yet I did let myself down, unfortunately. Oh, and in the process, I let down everyone. Okay, so 3 weeks into Greenland, I'm 3 weeks sober. And for about, I think I'm just going to jump. I can't not. Flip an egg. Jesus. Have I made any progress at all? I have to say, Victoria Peak basically looks like where it was before. I do believe that was a half-hour needless detour. Okay, let's just try our best to stay here now. So, when I arrived to Greenland, I arrived less than a week sober. And, you know, about 3 weeks into Greenland, I'm obviously, you know, less than a month sober. I didn't have a choice. Well, of course, you always have a choice, but it kind of became obvious to me very quickly. I need to just tell my colleagues that I'm attempting sobriety because Greenland is astonishingly beautiful, but there's not that much to do. And so people don't just drink, they drink obscenely. And please bear in mind that you're combining that with people who work in the hospitality industry and people who are working in the hospitality industry under a tremendous amount of stress. Needless to say, when they partied, they absolutely went for it. And I was, you know, I think you always want to sit with drunk people and still be able to enjoy their company and still, you know, feel that you're included. That's what you want, but you can't. Even now that I'm 14 months sober, it's like, actually drunk people are the worst, you know. They're well-intentioned most of the time, but they're saying the same thing over and over again. They laugh too loud, you know, that it hurts your ears. They talk too close to you, and they, you know, alcohol smells, right? You don't notice it when you're drunk on the stuff, but when you're sober and you're around like a table of alcohol, especially wine, and then, you know, a table of people kind of just drunkenly talking to you with their alcohol breath, alcohol stinks. And then, you know, you see what people do when they're drunk, that when you're drunk yourself feels like the best idea, like the most exciting adventure in the world, you know, getting off with colleagues, you know, stupid pranks, etc., etc. When you're sober, you can't help but just look at it and think, oh my God, you're an idiot. And I've been that idiot for many years, so I don't say that with a huge amount of judgment, but you can't sincerely enjoy that company when you're sober. I'm not talking about tipsy, I'm talking about people who are proper drunk. So I just couldn't relate to my colleagues. But also, I don't feel this way now, but you absolutely do at the start of sobriety. It's very difficult to be around drunk people when you're sober and you've just quit alcohol, because they're engaging in a behavior that you really enjoyed. So they're like teasing you with a good time, right? And it's like, oh, I'm not part of this. I don't belong to this group, but if I had 3 beers, I absolutely would in a second. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I think as well, you still have physical cravings for a while, you know what I mean? Anyway, so I just had to say to because my colleagues were obviously, not because they had a particularly strong bond with me, but just out of politeness, were always inviting me to these events. And I turned up to a few for, a half hour before like shuffling out the door silently. But then I just had to start saying, no, I'm not coming, blah, blah, I'm too tired tonight, blah, blah, blah. And then it just became, actually, you're coming across as a complete oddball. And you're beginning to feel very isolated in a place where it's probably important you don't feel that way. So you just need to tell them, even though it feels very awkward, that the reason you don't drink is because you're trying to be sober. And so I didn't tell everyone. I told one person, and needless to say, everyone knew very soon. And everyone was incredibly kind about it. But, no buts, sorry. Yes, but what that did mean was that when alcohol started going missing a month in, no one said it to me explicitly, and it's possible it was sheer paranoia on my part, but I was aware that I had made myself known as someone with a history of struggling to be around alcohol and treat it responsibly. And please bear in mind that it's bad enough that company alcohol was going missing, that's not acceptable at all. But this is alcohol that had to be shipped from mainland Europe, which isn't cheap. And it was alcohol that was by no means ever cheap to begin with. It wasn't like tins of Tennent's. It was, champagne, crazy bottles of wine that were going missing. And rightfully so, people wanted to get to the bottom of it. And the head sommelier wanted to get to the bottom of it more than anyone else, because he was livid that his stock was going missing. Well, would you believe it? About a week later, he didn't turn up to his shift, and so someone was sent to get him. And obviously, this is like a little rural town where it's like you just go into someone's house, you just open the door, and then you just go to get to the room, you just open the door, like, no locks, no privacy, man. Anyway, and there he was, lying on the bed, surrounded by these bottles of wine. Oh shit. You okay, miss? I think I can't do much about it. Through my neck. I think she heard how dramatic my story was and just collapsed. So he'd been the thief all along. And they even gave him a second chance, which they were definitely kind people, but I actually think it was more just out of necessity. It's like, how can we get a new smelly? So they even gave him a second chance, which is crazy, because thousands and thousands of pounds worth of alcohol had gone missing, and he'd lied about it, and he didn't ever confess to it. It's just that he was caught. But then, about 2 weeks later, what happens? He's drunk again, on shift, and he gets fired. Obviously, there's certain elements of tragedy to that. He's a man with a problem. I can somewhat sympathise. I had a heart-to-heart with him, where I just gave my... at that point, I really hadn't proved my sobriety, so I kept it humble, but I did sort of just try to say, look, dude, don't think I don't know what you're going through, and I've never done what you've done, but I've done plenty of things that I'm very embarrassed about. You have to think you're worth it, right? To get past it. I can't actually remember what I said. I remember being quite proud of myself afterwards, though, you know, because an important thing for me going into that conversation was that I wasn't going to like mollycoddle him and be kind about what he'd done, because he was a man in his 30s that chose to steal. The thing is, there was a shop in the village, right? So, and that shop sold alcohol. It's not like this was his only way to get his fix. You know, obviously addiction compromises your thought process, but choices were still made that were not acceptable. And that, you know, we'll never get to the bottom to. I don't particularly care now anyway. But I do remember just going into the conversation, it's like a kind of firm boundary in my mind is not that I'm going to say things like, oh, what does it matter, mate? Or, oh, that's cool that you got to drink some cool wine. You know, I was never going to help him out by making a joke of it or trying to soften that situation. What he did to the team and to himself was not cool. But I wanted to be kind about his future, because you can be kind about anyone's future. Even people in really, really horrible situations can go on to have astonishing futures. And that was kind of the conversation I had with him. I think it went okay. Well, I mean, maybe it's stuck in somewhere subconscious, but I can't say it was a triumphant success immediately, because the company bought his ticket home from Ilulissat to Scotland. And I truly believe that had nothing to do with compassion. It was just that they were like, okay, we need to get this. Someone's swimming. All good, sir? Yeah, you're not dying? He seems to... Oh, there's two of them. Oh, no, shit, there's loads of them. They're definitely in there on purpose. So, they bought his ticket home. So obviously they bought my ticket home, they bought everyone else's ticket home, but that was because we completed our contract, we weren't fired. And obviously if you quit, they wouldn't be buying your ticket home. But they 100% bought his ticket home because he had become such a liability that they needed him off company property. Pronto. He got so shit-faced in the staff accommodation in Ilulissat the night before his flight that he didn't make the flight. And then he had to buy his own ticket back to Scotland. Crazy stuff, dude. Fuck me, man. Just think about what alcohol ruins. This guy has worked so hard on his profession to the extent that he's knowledgeable in something that I have no personal interest in, but that I understand is, you know, takes a lot of time to master. And he reached the highest level. He was working in really, really prestigious restaurants that traveled globally and paid the workers to follow them. And he got to be head sommelier at Cox. And then, so he got paid to go to Greenland, remote Greenland, and work at one of the most unique restaurants in the world. And then alcohol within under 6 weeks. It's, you know, suddenly it goes from an absolute dream to an absolute nightmare, because you're a man in your 30s, shit-faced, being, you know, in a meeting being told this is all the money you owe us. Like, let's figure out a way you can pay us it back, mate. And also, you're flying home tomorrow. Good luck explaining that to your parents and your mates. Like, this is what you have to live with forever. I'm not saying that's precisely how the conversation went down, but that's precisely how it feels, right? You know, I hope it says rock bottom. I hope it didn't get worse. Anyway, so that happened. It didn't happen to me, but it affected me. It affected me first as someone who was suspected of a serious crime. And then, for the rest of the summer, it affected me as an individual who could not know less about wine, but was suddenly in a situation where all the waiters were told, the tables that you serve, you're personally in charge of their drinks. And I just learnt the 16-course menu. I've felt pretty comfortable with that, you know. Even food's not my area of expertise. I just like serving people. But, you know, I can learn the menu, and there's things about the menu I can sincerely become quite interested in, because it's not just about knowing the precise ingredients. There's always, you know, a story behind it that's interesting. How certain fish is caught is interesting. Why we choose to present them in a certain order. There's always narratives, multiple narratives that you can bring to each course. And it's a joy to learn those narratives in terms of, you know, personal knowledge, but it's also a joy to then, as quickly as you can, tap into each restaurant about what kind of narrative they're wanting from the experience, and to give them that. I can do that with food with a bit of effort. I can't do it with wine, because even when I was a drinker, I never drank wine. I don't give a shit about fancy alcohol at all. I've never had money. I'm a lucky person, but I've never had a lot of money. So when I get drunk with my friends, we're getting drunk on, you know, pints at an old man pub in Glasgow. We're drinking cans in the park. We're having shots at happy hour. You know, like, I mean, that's most people, right? I've never sat with a £40 glass of wine, sipping it, taking it in and truly appreciating it. I've just never had that palate. I've never had that interest. I've never been that classy girl. So this was a nightmare. Suddenly you had to immediately learn all these wines paired with each course. And you had to deliver it with confidence, because it's not fair for the guests to have a compromised experience. I don't know. I'm just going to level with you. I did try my best, but also I was pretty good at going to the table with the wine and pouring it, but then immediately talking about like the customers themselves, the clients. And so, you know, as I'm pouring it, I'm talking to them about themselves, or, you know, about myself, but about, you know, something that wasn't the wine, but without having to fully admit that I didn't know anything about the wine, because I was presenting the situation as if I was just truly engrossed in the fact that, oh, you've flown here from Norway, have you? Very cool. Okay, so that was a tough thing. Him leaving, him being fired. Another tough thing was that the stress of the head sommelier, what he kind of put management through, meant that our head waiter, our manager, my manager, she quit. So about 8 weeks in, so halfway through the experience, she quits with almost immediate effect. Like, I want to say maybe a week's notice. And so because it was such a small team to begin with, there was only 2 seniors in the front of house, and they both left. By halfway through the summer, both of them had gone. And so suddenly, we're all just head waiters. And I look back on it with awe. But what a state of perplexion I was in whilst it was happening, that someone like me was suddenly expected to be a head waiter at such a prestigious restaurant. And I just, there wasn't really a choice. I mean, okay, fine, I can say, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'm paying $2,000 to go home. But, I mean, that never actually really crossed my mind. And I'm glad it didn't. But it was crazy. Anyway. That was my summer. Door locked. Oh no. That was my summer in Greenland. What was my point? Yes, Lego. Hey, these are cute. Crab. Very nice. It's a cute little sign. Okay. Oh, hi, sir. I'm trying to walk towards TKO by going along the water.
Which one?
I'm trying to walk along the water.
Water?
Water?
You mean
The river? No. Trying to walk to TKO. Chukeiling?
Oh, you can just
TKO.
You just go that way.
That way, sir? For how long?
Yeah, just follow the seaside. And
I'm
then-
trying, but it keeps taking me back to land.
Really?
Well, how do I get to the sea?
You just go
Around.
That way.
Thank you, sir.
Along the way.
How long to TKO?
Around 10-15 minutes, depends on how fast you are.
10-15 minutes walk?
Depends on the pace.
TKO?
ทัวร์ที่โทรก็หวานทำไมอีไปหา Yeah, just
10,
that way.
15-minute walk?
Yeah, it depends on you.
Google Maps told me 4 hours.
Google Map, man.
Is bullshit. Okay, if that's true, the pro is that I could actually just walk to work all the time now. The con is that I'm going to arrive to work at 5 in the morning. I'm really parched. I don't think it's true. Google Maps, I accept they're wrong, but can they be that wrong? It says that I've been walking 68 minutes, but it's definitely not in a straight line towards TKO. It's the most... Let's look at this sign. So, Wimpia Station. It doesn't say what the next... I don't know. Ferry to Central. So, sorry, where are we? Does it say where we are? You are here. So we just want to go down Harbour Centre Tower and keep walking along the water. Okay, so just drinking my Coke. Don't know if I want to go down there. Seems like a long walk to a not certain footpath. So I think I'm going to walk along here for a little while longer. Street food district, well, I should certainly remember that. Oh, this is so refreshing, so nice. The fishermen we saw fishing at night. I'd love to join them one night. Such a good idea to fish at night, because obviously the fish don't care. But it must be a much more pleasant experience when you're not surrounded by people and it's not absolutely sweltering. So, all of this story was to tell you that I worked in Greenland and that I told my colleagues that I was going to Legoland. And when I told my colleagues I was going to Legoland, so like I said, most of them were from the Faroes, which means that most of them had experienced Legoland themselves because they belonged to the Kingdom of Denmark. Oh my goodness. I'm sure that guy was driving normal, it just didn't feel like it. My bag is annoying me so much, I do apologise. And this jumper needs to be double tied. Oofed. Right. When I told them I was going to Legoland, and bear in mind, right, this wasn't a completely random choice for me. I'd actually been to Legoland in Windsor as a kid. When I was a kid, so many security guards at this time of night. Do you think it's the best job or the worst job in the world? If you're an introvert that just likes your own, I mean, there's definitely times in my life I'd love it, you know, just getting to walk around an empty mall. Even that little experience I had myself was really fun. You could just get into your own world. You get paid regardless of whether you have to work hard or not, right? What? Okay. This would be a cool place to film at another time. Do you think she's open? Hi. This is a one-take video, hence why it's shit. But I need to start exploring more obscure parts of Hong Kong and filming food reviews. Yeah, so we'd been to Windsor as a family when I was maybe, I don't know, I want to say about 8, and absolutely adored the experience. It's funny, I have 2 memories of Legoland, Windsor Legoland. The first a problem with large chains, and for the record, there's loads of positives, but a problem with large chains. So see this McDonald's? It gives me the fear because it's like, oh shit, I've seen a McDonald's on this trip before. Like it makes me think I'm not walking properly. I'm going back on myself, but I'm not, or at least I don't think I am. It's just that statistically, if you go on a long walk, you'll walk past a lot of McDonald's. So anyway, my 2 memories, oh, this is cute, of Legoland as a kid. The first was that even though I was young, I had such an appreciation for how much effort had gone into the Lego builds at Windsor, like how cool they were. I really was impressed by it. I think this is like a residential area. Hi sir, are you security? No? No worries. Do you know where TKO is?
What?
TKO?
TKO? It's far away from here.
How far?
Very.
Oh, it's okay. Do you know like which way to walk?
You can take a bus.
Oh no, I'm trying to walk. I know it's far.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a
then
challenge.
That way.
That down by the water.
No. I'm sure the map.
You're very kind, sir.
Yes. Actually, you need to walk along the road and uphill.
Uphill. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Go to Kuntong and then uphill to Samoping and then.
Okay,
There's
so
a hillside
this
here.
way first.
Yeah, this way first, and then you will see this Kaita area.
So how far? Maybe 3 hours?
No. Which part of TKO you want to go?
TKO, the gateway.
Okay. Yeah, 3 hours. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you, my friend. Yeah. I had a real cool appreciation for the effort that had gone into the Lego. I just thought it looked sick. But secondly, my younger sister, thanks, sir, yeah. Thank you, my friend. I've said before, she has autism. And not like me, she actually takes it seriously. She really committed, I have to say. So, lovely little sis. She's no filter, obviously. And at the time, she was only 6. So we come from rural Scotland, or by Greenland standard, a major city, but by Scotland standards, pretty rural. And so, if you're from rural Scotland, if someone's foreign, what that means is that they're English. Basically, that's changing. The world is becoming more multicultural at quite a rapid rate, so that is changing. But when I was growing up, we had a Chinese family in the town that ran the Chinese, if you can believe it. And there was a few Polish, white Polish, but really just, I don't know, let's say 5, and everyone else. It's not just that they were Scottish. It was that they were Scottish and from Newton Stewart, and their great grandparents were from Newton Stewart. Actually, because my parents weren't from Newton Stewart, and I always felt that made me a bit different, because I didn't have that thing where that everyone else in town seemed to have, where they were being asked, that you couldn't talk about your granny down the road and everyone knew who your granny was and stuff. You weren't part of history in the same way of that small town. I mean, it's a special kind of hell in some ways, but you also see how it continues and continues. Why, it's so hard for people to leave. And obviously not everyone wants to. For some people, the idea of leaving all that history behind, leaving all that connection to your roots behind, it's crazy. Oh, look, it's open. Okay. But anyway, so little sis, we all go to Legoland as people from rural Scotland. We go to Windsor, which is just outside London. Obviously, London is completely different to rural Scotland in terms of demographics. I mean, that's just one of the reasons it's different. And the whole day, and I was 8, so I wasn't that old, but I had an awareness this isn't good. I was aware that it's not fair that this is happening. But my sister, the whole day, with no ill will, and obviously with no understanding of how it could be affecting others, but she was just going, there's a black person, there's a black person, there's a black person, over and over and again, because obviously there's quite a few black people there. There was people of all races there, and oh my God, because none of us could have seen it coming. because, you know, it's not like she was doing that in Ure and Stewart. And it was embarrassing, but there's nothing, you know, you couldn't stop it. And then a really cool thing happened, which is that we were in line for a ride, and in front of us were a bunch of school kids, and as it happens, at least half of them were black, and so obviously, predictably, they're black. Oh my gosh, look, Mum, look, they're black. And the teacher turned round, and my mum goes to the teacher. I just remember this so clearly. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry, my daughter's autistic. And the teacher went, oh, so are we. And it was a class from a special needs school. They were at Legoland. And it was amazing, because this has changed so quickly. You know, my upbringing wasn't that long ago, but I remember such large parts of my upbringing involved, you know, Mum getting dirty looks in a supermarket when, you know, when my sister's having a meltdown, and me just feeling so upset for my mum that she had to experience that judgment, and so angry that my sister was being judged, you know. And there was just so many times when, you know, my sister would do or say something inappropriate, or, you know, at least inappropriate by a neurotypical society standard, right? And I would kind of be trying to help my sister out by not just turning to the person and saying, oh, okay, she's disabled, like she's not completely with it, or, you know, she's autistic. I don't want to put my sister in that situation where I'm quote unquote outing her, but also just, you know, it's her private information. And I always tried really hard from a young age to never like shame my sister's behaviour when I could see it wasn't intended, you know. So of course I had to kind of like cushion around it for the sake of other people, and for my sister's safety on some occasions. But I never tried to go, that's completely ridiculous, if I couldn't justify why it was ridiculous. If the reasons why it's ridiculous is just like, well, some people are a bit sensitive, or, well, this is just the rules, we don't do that. If you can't explain why it's ridiculous, then it's not ridiculous. And so she shouldn't be treated like it's ridiculous and that she's done something really bad. It's a rule I still stand by. I'm very proud of that rule, because I think it's so important. But yeah, so there's plenty of times I was in situations where it's like, oh, you've said something that's made this person look at you a bit funny, and let's hope that look doesn't escalate into an unkind comment or, you know, something worse, because, you know, I'm here to protect you, little sis. I don't want that for you. So, you know, you would be trying to buffer it a bit, right? By not just outright saying, oh, look, she's disabled, mate. You'd be trying to say like, oh, sometimes Rachie says, you know, funny things, or, oh, I'm not sure she meant it like that. You know, you'd be saying things that were acceptable in Rachel's mind for you to be saying, but what you were actually doing was that you were trying to signal to the person who was offended, look, just a heads up. She didn't mean it that way. But growing up, that was just missed all the time. You would say things that you thought were making it pretty clear, look, please take this with a grain of salt, or please bear in mind this and that. And you could just see that they either didn't register the hints you were giving them at all, or in their mind they were dismissing it as, no, she's spoiled, or she's rude, or, well, I don't care. Even if I do know she's autistic, I don't care. She's a freak. You felt that all the time. Anyway, not that much time has passed since those days, but now it couldn't be more different, really. There's still plenty of people who don't understand autism, but everyone understands it enough that they understand, oh, okay, some behaviours are just different but aren't intended to be unkind. Or, okay, I don't really get this, but I'm willing to be kind about it. You know, but most people get it now, actually. This is why, you know, I'll always be a centralist, kind of a, oh, that one's big. We are genuinely exposed to a lot of quote unquote woke nonsense right now, you know. Intensely oversensitive people, anxious to make huge deals out of genuinely nothing. And almost, for what it seems like, to capitalise on the genuine suffering that people like my sister have gone through. You know, I can't approve of that. I really dislike it when I see it. I dislike it as someone who, in general, is just trying to self-improve as well, right? Because I see it as such a massive self-sabotagation, self-improvement. You know, if you really hone in on the potential microaggressions of your workplace, it's not that there's not a valuable chat to be had about it from time to time, but, you know, if that's really going to prove to be a significant setback in your life, you haven't developed the resilience you should have developed. And the encouragement to make these things a big deal is an encouragement to never develop resilience. So I can't get on board with any of that, and I also can't get on board with people who use these non-existent issues as a way to, you know, to bully other people in the name of compassion. But I just hate people whose counter-argument to this is to say, look, everyone just needs to man up and get on with shit. And, you know, the whole world's gone soft and all these special allowances we now make. It's like, no, come on. That really, really makes me anxious, that pushback, because that affects real people, you know, who really, even with all the allowances society now gives them, are still really struggling and still deserve a lot more. You know what I mean? I actually think that's where my hatred for, you know, the quote-unquote woke snowflakes come from, is that they're actually sabotaging my sister's rights. Not intentionally, but they are, 100%. They undermine it by making it seem like, you know, everyone is essentially like my sister, when that's not true. And they create an environment of hostility towards people who are different. And that really makes me anxious. What was I saying? Yeah, so anyway. So little sis had said, they're autistic. No, sorry, they're black. And it turns out, they were black, yeah. But it turns out that they were autistic, and that it was an autistic school. And that teacher turning around and just immediately laughing about it, you know, like being like, oh, that's cool, we're autistic too. That was such a... So the colours are beginning to get quite beautiful, aren't they? I'm gonna say, so I left the flat, the Chungking mansion at 4. I'm gonna say it's now 5:30. Oh, let me just take a moment. So I'm at Chai Young. Hi, sir. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm gonna finish my Coke. And then we'll soldier on. Everyone that's walking past me is really, really, really old. So I'm not sure if that's to do with the area I'm in, or if it's just that old people like being up at 5:30 in the morning. Oh gosh. I'm tired twice, right? Because I've done quite a strenuous walk whilst talking the whole time. Talking absolute shite, of course, but still talking. But also because I haven't slept. And obviously I'm going to work where, I mean, I doubt my 3-year-old kids are gonna give me an easy time just because I haven't slept all night and that I've chose to walk, you know, I don't know, 10 miles. This is a me problem, obviously. I just need to power through today. My gosh, I'm enthralled by these beautiful colours. I'll show you in just a sec. Look at this. My gosh. Okay. I think the walk's going to be a bit more enjoyable now for like the next hour and a half, whilst the sun is rising and we still get the city largely to ourselves. And it's still pretty cool, you know, cool weather-wise. We'll see though, who knows. We've already witnessed quite a lot, you know. We've been in a empty shopping mall. We've seen fishermen. We saw a woman almost die. Well, that's it. I mean, for 90 minutes, that's not really much content, is it? Yeah, that teacher being very, very, you know, not even being very kind about it, just, you know, just by saying, oh, there's other kids like your sister. It was, sorry. And some of us get it, you know. So you don't need to explain any further why is she saying they're black, you know what I mean? They just get it. That was a moment, you know. Sometimes life has little moments that you'll always remember. So I had already been to Windsor, and so part of me going to Billund was just the idea that I would be, I guess you could say, completing the Legoland experience. Oh, is this a little stage? I mean, it really is a little stage, isn't it? It's cute though. Maybe I should do one of my little comedy specials there. Oh, this is nice. This is the type of place that's really lovely now, but on Sunday at noon would be hell. Oy. Right. I miss. Closed. So I think we've got to. Oh, sugar. I really don't want to stray from the water. But God ain't giving me much of a say in it. I don't think I need to. What? Why didn't I just... What happened that meant I didn't just come this way? I really believe almost all of these little detours I'm taking that are extending an already super long walk are completely unnecessary. Maybe not. Who knows? I've always had a dream of hitchhiking on a cargo ship. And I've looked it up so many times, on Google, like, how could you do it? And basically, Google's consensus is that it was never common, but people did used to do it in a way that back in the day people could, do almost anything because there was less, tightly monitored legislation. But now, you can't just go, you can ask as nicely as you want, and the owner of not owner, I don't know, whoever's on the cargo ship can want to take you as much as they want. But, you can't just really transport people across international waters, hitchhiking legally. Especially not when you're part of like a major corporation, as cargo ships are. They're not cheap to fund, so like they're all multi-million pound, or if not billion-pound businesses. You can't kind of just ask them to break the rules for you and do you a solid. So basically, it doesn't seem that I'll ever hitchhike on a cargo ship. You don't have to hitchhike. A few cargo ships mean that you can pay. You can pay to go on a few cargo ships. And the two reasons people do that is either, that they have a severe fear of flying, but that they need to go across the ocean. Or it's for environmental reasons. That would be cool. I've looked into it though. It's very expensive. It's like you're paying like £100 a night, easy peasy. But obviously you're just at sea, and you're not on a ship that offers any, entertainment or allowances for the fact that you're there, basically. So you say like you can pay like to go from Cape Town to say Rotterdam on one of these ships, and let's say it's a 40-day voyage and it costs you £4,000. I mean, cool novelty, but it'd probably wear off before you've got to Rotterdam. The experience has cost you 4 times what an 8-hour flight would cost you. And I don't know, like I say, you're entertaining yourself because cargo ships aren't providing like mega shows or a casino or, a revolving buffet, are they? So if I was given the chance to go on a cargo ship from Cape Town to Rotterdam for free, 1,000,000% I would take it, but I doubt I'll ever spend £4,000 on it. Okay, nice. But I could see myself hitchhiking on a sailboat again. I see that in my future. So you see these spaces in the buildings? When they're big, these ones aren't that big, but sometimes you see really big ones. And that's to do with like, oh God, why start a conversation I don't know anything about? It's to do with like the Chinese's relationship to energy and having, ways for energy to flow. And so sometimes really big buildings have a hole in the middle of them here in Hong Kong. And it's all to do with spirituality, actually. North Point? So this is a ferry you can take to North Point. I used to live at North Point, but this worries me a little because it suggests I haven't walked that far. My Tau Cock Public Pier. Nope. Nice colors, right? So, take a look at me. Take a look at me now. Unfortunately, I can never look good in Hong Kong, at least not in Hong Kong summers. I'm so sweaty, like I've got a proper sweat moustache. I can feel it. Proper sweaty brow. So I'm always sweaty in a very visible way. And that sweat, it comes out my hair, which means immediately, the second I leave the flat, my hair comes like this, not attractive curly, not cute curly, just frizzy and bushy. Hermione Granger, book Hermione Granger, bushy. It's unfortunate that I never get to feel attractive in Hong Kong. This is a cool building. I don't think you realize it's important until you don't have that option. Do you know what I mean? Look, I'm no troll. I don't look like a troll. And also, it's not the most important thing in the world. But, I think sometimes it's nice to just feel like, oh, I look good. And unfortunately, this humidity just does not suit my natural body. So that's one reason I couldn't live here long term, actually. And again, I know it understands superficial, but it adds up when you've never had a day since you've been here where it's like, oh, I actually like the way I look. You know what I mean? I could put on the nicest dress. That's nice. I could spend an hour on my makeup, get my hair absolutely perfect, and then within 5 minutes of me leaving the flat, 50% of that effort immediately is gone. And within an hour, 90 minutes, it's all gone. I don't think you want that forever. It's nice in Scotland, like when I straighten my hair, it just stays straight all day. If I put on makeup, I don't sweat it off. It sits quite nice, you know what I mean? Okay, back to the water. But I will say, conversely, something that's been nice is that, okay, I'm a bit self-conscious about the way I look, specifically in Hong Kong, not in general. But I still grow on social media despite that. Yesterday on Instagram I hit 15,000 followers, and I've only been doing, so I post a daily reel, food reviews, and I have 15,000 followers on Instagram and over 4 million views since I first started. And Instagram is such a visual platform, and one that, you know, really favors the good looking. And yet I've still done well on it. And I hate to brag and I hate to jinx it, but I actually think I'm on the precipice of my Instagram doing really well. You know, I've done well already, only 3 months in and 15,000 followers, but I have a feeling it's about to pop, which doesn't translate to money until people actually sponsor you. Like, they don't pay for views, which is why I would really like the Instagram success to translate to the Educate Eats and TikTok success, because those guys do pay once I'm big enough on those platforms. But it hasn't happened yet. It may never happen. But do you know what? It's becoming increasingly likely that there's a chance. But anyway, so despite the fact that I've just never, you know, looked that good, people still watch my videos on Instagram. And I think it's just it's a nice little tribute, right, to the fact that you don't always need to overthink how you look, because other people aren't. Other people actually are tuning into what you're saying, or, you know, or obviously there's always going to be some that don't stick around because they find you unattractive, but I'm 90% sure this is not the way. Right. Of all the dead ends, Kate, this is the deadest of ends. Ooh. I don't have a bag to put them in, otherwise I would put them in a bag and then sort these shoes out later. I mean, I've got my rucksack, but I don't have... Hi, sorry. I said dead end. Oh, well, so suit yourself. Maybe she's there to collect her shoes. Yeah, just goes to show, A, that you... I mean, even if you're not attractive, it doesn't mean that you can't achieve moderate success. And B, you know, I think it's a good tribute to starting things before the situations are perfect, right? I could have theoretically thought, oh, I don't look too good, so I won't film until I'm in a situation where I can ensure I look good. And first of all, there's several reasons why that might never happen. But second of all, why? One day I will look good, sure. But by then, when I'm posting, I'll be posting to, you know, a follower count of 40,000. When, you know, if I'd waited until then I'd be posting to 0. So, yeah, that's a big thing I've learned as I've aged. Don't wait for situations. We have anxiety that we should be waiting to take the next steps in life, you know, when we're ready. But by definition, you can't be ready for growth. If you're in a growth period, you're experiencing things that are uncomfortable and that you're not ready for. But that's precisely why you're growing, right? So you can't have it both ways. And something, I don't think it's good to talk too much on my YouTube channel about having a social media presence, because it's not a relatable thing. none of my followers or subscribers ever are commenting saying like, oh, I'm in the exact same position as you, Kate, because I've got a YouTube channel. They always say, oh, because I've got autism, or because I'm also an expat, or because I also feel a little bit left behind by society. Those are like the three things that my audience feel that I give them in terms of a common connection. None of them say anything about content creation. So, you know, I want to keep this a place where I don't talk about that side of life too much, because I don't want my channel to be about that. But anyway, one interesting thing about being a content creator is that I was thinking about this. The very first day I was a teacher, and this would be true of any job that I've had. The very first day I was a teacher, I wasn't very good at it. And I think it's understood that's fair enough. The reason you weren't very good at it is because it was your very, very first day. But you will become good at it. Oh, I'd love a mango. And so, you know, people say that to you as a teacher, when I worked in hospitality, when I worked with the mentally unwell, you know, basically any job. And also, no one was well, of course, the people who had to watch me were watching me, but basically no one was watching me on my first day of teaching. I got to make a tit of myself and not be very good at the job in front of my boss, and that was it, you know. So of course there was times I was embarrassed. At the beginning of my teaching career, but I was only embarrassed in front of one person. When you decide, for whatever reason, to give content creation a shot, or just, you know, you don't have to take it so seriously as to call it content creation, but, you know, when you decide to talk to a camera and post it on the internet, I've just realised my battery's only at 19%, which isn't good because I put in I charged my battery for this video with the expectation that it would easily last 4 hours. But obviously the maths ain't maths in here. If I've already lost 80% of my battery and I'm only an hour and a half in, it's not going to last another 2.5 hours. It's a bit too cold because it's just out of the fridge, but it's pretty delicious. Let's look at this. It's nice, isn't it? Oh, this looks like a nice straight walk. Imagine if it had been like this the whole way. I've no idea what that building is. Pretty big, isn't it? Probably, I mean, assume. It looks like a O2 equivalent, doesn't it? Oh. So, when for whatever reason you want to start making videos and posting them online, right? The very first few times you're doing it, it's like your first day of work, isn't it? In that you're committing yourself to a new skill set, a new environment where you don't really know the rules. You don't really even know if it's for you, but you're giving it a shot, right? And yet, whilst when you're a teacher or a lawyer or, you know, a cashier or any other job, whilst in those jobs there's a training period, and also, you know, you're being told by everyone around you that the expectation that you're brilliant to start with isn't there, and also that you're only being judged by a small amount of people. You know, none of that's there. Your very first day of work as a content creator is seen by whoever happens to see it. And I think as someone who's slowly growing, definitely not as fast as I'd like, and definitely not producing the quality I'd like. I say that as someone who's about to post an unedited ramble that lasts, I wouldn't say I'd like to live in those buildings because they're gonna fall down at any second, but I really like the colours and the contrast of old and new on the water. Yeah, I can't really talk about quality as someone who's planning on posting this video. What this video represents to me is just doing something a bit different, which is walking to work without Google Maps at a time of day that's quite interesting because it's such a busy city and nobody's about. I wasn't planning on talking. But then what happened was I talked a little, and then I became a bit self-conscious to stop talking. But no, then it turned out I had more to say than I thought. Okay, cool. I would recommend watching this video on mute. Right, so when you're a content creator, your very first day of work is in front of the whole world. I mean, of course, you know, that might not actually just translate to 300 people, but it's technically the whole of the world has access to it. And none of them make any allowances for the fact that it's your first day on the job. They all judge you. Not all judgment is bad, of course. There's plenty of positive judgment, but it's all judgment. But also it's like, you know, some of those people that are judging you in a negative way are people you know from school. My mum, I never told her that I went viral in January, but she found out through one of her friends, and I don't know how her friend knew. But so yeah, like my mum's now watches my videos. It's not I mean, I love my mum, and it's just part of the. I just saw things coming out of the water, so it's tiny little tadpoles or fish, but I saw a huge splash earlier. I don't think you can pick it up on camera. They're very small. It's definitely not where the major splashes were coming from. Oh, there's the big splash ahead. Okay, let's go investigate what that's about. Yeah, it wasn't coming from those wee lads. Right, yeah, some of the people judging you are, I don't know if, not everyone minds, and I think I'm one of these people. I don't particularly mind what strangers think of me, because they truly are strangers. I mean, occasionally you'll get a very biting comment that does successfully kind of pick on a personal insecurity, and so it sits with you for a little bit, but not that long. And it really doesn't happen that often. But when someone you know like sends you a message saying, "Oh, I saw your video, mate," and then you think about that video and you think, "Oh, that wasn't a very good video," it's a bit stressful because it's, you know, that would be like me going to someone at school, "Oh, I watched a secret live stream of your first day working at the morgue," and then, you know, they think about their first day working at the morgue and you know, they cremated you know, a woman who was actually the receptionist and she was only just sleeping. She wasn't actually the dead body in the back that the person they thought it was, and, you know, they, you know, tell the wrong family, like a loved one's died, etc., etc. You know, that's your first day at the morgue. You probably don't want people from school watching that, right? Anyway, so the reason I say all this, it's just part of the job when you do content creation. It's accepting that in order for you to grow and become, hi, nice to see. Oh, so kind. Oh, that's nice. I wonder what this is about. Do you think it's a stranded whale? That would be a good hook for this otherwise pointless vlog, wouldn't it? If it ends with me saving a whale. Ho ho ho. Here's hoping it's a dying, struggling whale. Anyway, yeah, if you want to get big on social media, or, you know, when I say big, I just mean to earn a living wage, because then you have so many options, right? Then the world's genuinely your oyster. If your salary comes from making content online, you don't have to make Logan Paul money. If you can make, I would say, 20 grand a year. And, you know, you probably want it to be 30 grand a year because everything's so expensive nowadays, but 20 grand a year would be an absolute dream. Think of what you could do with that. Think how you could change the freedom and how you could change your life with that. But if you want to get there, you have to get good at the job. And you can't just be good at the job on day one. You've got to learn on the job. And you've got to be comfortable with the fact that whoever wants to see you learning on the job can see it. And they're all going to have their opinions on it. And some of those bad opinions of you will be valid, because some of your content will be bad. But you just got to suck it up and power through it. And I feel like I'm in that stage. I'm in the sucking stage. I'm in the sucking up stage, you know, just powering through the embarrassment. Powering through it. Just not giving it thought. Not stopping to think about it. Because that can't do me any good. It wouldn't do good at all. I'm now on 11%, losing charge rapidly. That sucks because it is inevitable I'm going to have to stop this before I get to TKO. Kai Tai promenade. Yeah, you are beautiful. Yeah, it really sucks because I'm actually beginning to really enjoy this. Let's go back down. Hey, cute. This is cute as well. With my 2-year-olds, we have a different theme every month. And our theme this month is space. That's a funny thing about teaching English as a second language to like little kids. It's like you have little kids, right, that come to, oh, here it is. What's going on? So I'm guessing it's, I don't want to say sewage, but it's, oh, I don't know. It's where things come out. Oh my God. Let's ask the fisherman. Hey man, hey, what's that? What is it? Yeah, you don't know? Was it you? Is it always there? Yeah? Okay, cool. Thank you. Oh, yikes. Right, well, obviously I'm not meant to be. God, I'm such a bloody rebel. So, yeah, when you're teaching kids, and I really do mean babies, like I mean not technically babies, but 2 and 3 year olds, English, like the absolute fundamentals are ABC and counting to 10, and most of them come into your class knowing that because of all like the songs you can sing to teach kids those those things. They know those through songs. But after that, the very basics of English are like, my name is, this is how old I am, this is how many siblings I have, this is where I live, this is, what I like and dislike. In my family there are, etc., etc., stuff like that. Like, that's really the very, very basics. But on an ongoing curriculum, you can't teach kids that like all the time, because then you can't, like in a chat room situation that I'm in with some of my kids, every month you've got to be teaching them new things. There's loads of them. And so it actually always ends up being like quite advanced topics in many ways. So for example, this month I'm teaching space to kids that can't tell me their age. The month before that it was exploring. I can't remember what it was the last month, but we've had, Dragon Boat month, we've had Christmas. But anyway, so these kids, like, they learn like these random words like astronaut, spacesuit, countdown. But they still wouldn't be able to tell me if they've got a brother or sister. And it's so random how it works, but it does work, because they're in an English immersive situation, right? Just in general, by being in a situation like where they have to try their best to speak English for an hour, and all their peers are doing the same, and the teacher's making it as fun as she can by, just playing games the whole hours and, singing songs and stuff. They learn English at a rapid rate. It's got very little to do with the theme of the month, actually, even though that's what it feels it's all, like what it's all about. My job has such increasing returns. I really love it, because the first few months I wanted to love it so bad. I like kids. I like this. I like feeling that I'm helping others, and teaching is quite an obvious profession where you should get that reward, right? I like entertaining, I suppose. So I like being in front of a class and like knowing, oh, you're keeping everyone engaged, people are listening to what you're saying, you know, I like all that. So I just had this inkling I'd really like teaching. I also like the underdog, you know. It's not just like I like the kids that know exactly what's going on. I'll always root for the kid that's struggling and give them a bit of extra time. But, you know, I was very tired for so long. For the first few months, I was just in a constant state of fatigue. The new job, the new environment, it was all very overwhelming. And also, I just wasn't convinced that the curriculum I was being asked to teach was making much difference. But now, I've been there 9 months. And so I've had kids for 9 months. And I can see so clearly the difference. You know, you don't see it immediately. It's an investment. And now I feel I love my job, because I think teaching is pretty pointless if you don't feel it's making a difference. Once you see that it is, it's so rewarding. And also, it's significantly easier to be a teacher 9 months in than, you know, in the first month. Because, okay, of course, you're still always getting new students, but a lot of your students, you know, you've been with for a significant amount of time. And it's a significant amount of time even for you, right? But for say a 4-year-old, if you've been with them for 6 months of their life, you've known them and you've been supported them for 1/8 of their life. So without even having to do that much or even feel that you're making that much of a difference, suddenly you can actually see, oh shit, this kid really likes me. I've become a part of this kid's routine. You know, they're excited to tell me things about, you know, what they were up to since I last saw them. They want to cuddle me, you know, like that's their natural instinct, all that stuff. You realize, like, whether you like it or not, you're quite a significant part of their lives. That's special. Most of them won't remember you once you're gone, but you're still a part of those formative years. And if you're contributing to it positively, like, that's such an amazing thing. Anyway, yeah, so now that so it's easier to be a teacher as time goes on, because a lot of discipline issues you just don't have to deal with once you know the kids, because they want to respect you, or they know your limits. Like, they'll know, oh shit, Kate's just said something in a certain tone, like, that's it now. I know that tone. I don't want to test her further, you know what I mean? But, you know, there's still difficult kids. That's never going away. You deal with it the best you can, and I think once you become a good teacher, it's like when you're in that rare situation where it's like, shit, I genuinely can't deal with this situation. Like, this kid clearly has a lot of problems going on, and they're now being placed in an environment that they're very ill-suited for. You're a lot kinder on yourself, because you do have the understanding, it's like, well, this isn't your fault. No one's helping this kid right now. Yeah, but also teaching gets easier because it's like you're teaching the same. The structure of the curriculum's the same. Phonics, which is the biggest thing you teach to kids in English as a second language, that stays the same. Once you've done it a few times, you just know what to do. You just know how to effectively drill it. You know, like the jokes that land when you're trying to lighten up the class. I really like this job. I feel really lucky to like the job. I would have been in big trouble if I hadn't. You know, because I always had it in my mind, if I like this job, I'll go on to be a teacher. I'm now on 2%, fuck. I'll go on to be a teacher. And I didn't really have a backup. So it's nice to know, you know, I'm not saying 100% I'll become a teacher, but I know for sure that would be a nice thing to end up in. I've always got that solid option that I'd really enjoy. Okay, well, look, I found myself at another dead end and I'm at 2%. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say goodbye and then I'm gonna continue this walk by myself. I just have no other option. I can't do an uninterrupted, no edits vlog, and also take out this battery and recharge it, and you know, etc., etc. So, what? %. I wanted to take you all the way, my friends. But this is where it's like that Fleabag moment, you know, the season finale, where I say goodbye to the camera and I walk on myself. Just finished that Legoland story. Basically, I told my Greenlandic, I told my Faroese colleagues in Greenland that I'd bought my ticket to Legoland, and they laughed at me because it was for kids, and that dissuaded me from going. And I've regretted it ever since, because I should have still went. That was it. That was the story I didn't get to the end of finishing. Okay, my friends, this is clearly different from my usual style, and it's not a new style for me. I like YouTube gives me the opportunity to just sometimes do completely different things and justify it, because I'm going to do it with the camera on. And today was one of those days. I've had a lot of fun, and I'm going to continue to have fun without you. See you next time.